Hello and welcome to Mythmakers. Mythmakers is the podcast for fantasy fans and fantasy creatives brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. My name is Julia Golding, and today I'm joined by my friend from Australia, Andrew Head, and we're going to continue our discussion about audiobooks. And in this episode, we are taking our attention over to the biographies of Lewis, Tolkien, and the Inklings. So welcome, Andrew.
Hello, it's lovely to be here. Thank you, Julia.
And those who listen regularly to our podcast will know that Andrew is also, I think are you completely blind, Andrew, or partially
Yes,
sighted?
totally blind now, yes.
The accessibility of audiobooks is absolutely key, not only just out of your interest, but also you're a smashing writer, so it helps you also
Oh, thank you.
in your writing. So
Mm,
I look forward to talking about these biographies with you. We're now going to turn our attention to audio versions of biographies of Tolkien and Lewis. And the two
mm,
we're thinking about, the first one is to start with the biography of J.R.R. Tolkien by Humphrey
mm.
Carpenter. So this is actually quite an old book now, but it's read
Yeah.
by the version that you can get easily on sort of Audible or equivalent is read by Roger May. And
Mm.
I just had a little listen and I thought it sounded great. So tell me what you found in listening to this biography.
Oh, and in terms of the narration first?
Yeah, tell us about the production
Yeah.
and about the book itself.
Well, yeah. So it's a standard one narrator read. Um,
No sound
uh,
effects of,
no.
1920s cars.
Yeah. No sound effects, and the narrator does all the voices. Yeah, I think he did a very good job as a narrator, definitely. So yeah, it goes, being a biography of Tolkien, it goes through his life. One of my favorite parts of the book is the prologue, because in the prologue, Humphrey Carpenter recounts his first meeting with Tolkien, and I'm sure you were probably the same, Julia, when you read it. I was sitting there in awe, going, "You lucky, lucky, lucky bastard!" But yeah, just to have been in Tolkien's presence, I'm like, wow, must be amazing. So yeah, it's very enjoyable to listen to, and I think he did the smart choice putting that as the prologue.
Yes, it's written
Um,
in a way where it evokes the meeting. It's very sort of he's got a great style, Humphrey Carpenter, because
mm,
he not only tells you the facts around someone, but he evokes a moment, and he does that for his own meeting with Tolkien.
yeah, I wished because he mentioned, or Tolkien proceeded to talk about some problems he was having with Lord of the Rings and rewriting parts or something, and I wished he'd elaborated on exactly what that was. Yeah, and he does, goes through Tolkien's straight from, his early life growing up in South Africa and coming back to England, and yeah, all through his life, and does a very good job. And one of the other things he does very well is he at one point he painted went through and painted a picture, if you will, of in describing of a typical day in Tolkien's life. It wasn't an exact recount. It was a putting together of what all the events that most likely would have happened on a given day. And I remember he recounted in he said in the book, he said, "Oh, some people might find the details boring." I can't quite remember, but that's the gist. No, not me. I really enjoy that. Was one of my other favorite parts. It was really enjoyable to sort of hear, okay, well, what was a typical day for Tolkien like? It was, yeah, really, really interesting.
Yes, because the big events for Tolkien
Hmm.
happen really at the beginning of his life with the South Africa phase, the being an orphan. This is all biographical material galore. The First
Mm,
World War, but once he reaches Oxford, it's a fairly, except for the Second World War, his life is
mm,
pretty much rinse and repeat. It's family
mm,
life, it's lecturing, it's struggling to make ends meet. And so I think that way he chose to do it is a good way of saying, I haven't got lots of different separate incidents to tell you, but I can give you a flavor of this man's life in this period of his life.
Mm.
The Humphrey Carpenter biography, which is still probably the authoritative one, though there are some others. I have heard from contemporary scholars like Holly Ordway and
Mm.
others that there is an element of editing the life for his own taste that goes on with Humphrey Carpenter. So certain letters are only put in a certain way. I remember when I read it that Mrs. Tolkien, Edith, doesn't particularly come
Mm.
out very well. It's not a very sympathetic
Yeah.
portrait of her. Did you get that impression?
Yes. Yeah. He did. I'm interested to obviously to hear what you noticed, and what Holly Ordway notices. But from what I can remember, yeah, I mean, he sort of a couple of times he definitely sort of said, Tolkien and Edith had, marital problems, and uh, she Edith was very stubborn, and for a while wouldn't do what Tolkien asked in terms of coming to church and practicing her religion more, and sometimes you got the impression that it wasn't a very happy marriage, but I mean, it's clear that they loved each other very much, and I do think, I think that whilst those things probably were issues at times, and nothing's perfect, but he did sort of paint a bit of a picture that the marriage was quite difficult between them, and I like to think that, well, it had its probably had some difficult moments, and they were both orphans, etc. But I think on the whole, it was a lovelier marriage than he paints in the biography, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think each biography comes with the lens that the biographer puts on it, and I think Humphrey Carpenter wasn't great about women, to be honest.
Mm,
And
mm.
remember that Tolkien's last word on Edith is to put on her gravestone that she's Luthien.
Yes,
And he's
yes, yeah,
barren. So I think he
yeah,
misses out the romance that is on. But as you
yeah,
say, there's a long life. There is elements both of them
yeah.
didn't enjoy perfect health. Edith
Mm,
had some issues with her health and sort of
mm,
her nerves, or what
yeah,
these days is a mental illness, I suppose, of
mm,
sorts. And Tolkien was often
yeah,
ill, and
mm,
also had sort of like stress related work
mm,
issues. But that is a long life, and don't we all,
mm,
at some point in our lives, have all those things?
yeah. And
I
it's
don't
very,
think you get I think that where I would say the biography is the strength of the biography is you get to know Tolkien as he is known by his male friends.
yeah,
The weakness
mm,
of the biography is you don't really get to know him as he is known by his family and in his innermost
mm.
being. I don't know that we get there. Um
Yeah, so I would have liked to have seen a bit more of those things, definitely.
Yeah, but maybe they're out of our reach, I don't know,
Mm,
but I think it is a very good place to start as a biography, but also it's not the
yeah,
place to stop.
yeah, mm,
And, but one of the reasons why you don't get much evidence about the relationship with Edith is that he's living with her. So he's not sending letters to her saying, "Oh, my darling Edith," or anything.
yeah,
So there's a big
yeah, that's
silence in
true.
the material. They retired to it was Edith's choice to go to Bournemouth, and Tolkien went
Yeah,
with her. He didn't like Bournemouth particularly, but he went because he thought, "Well, she's been my faithful
mm,
wife all these years, putting up with me going to Oxford dinners. It's about time she could play bridge down in Bournemouth." That is a give and take of a marriage,
yeah,
mysterious that every marriage is, has its own
mm,
workings. So that's what I remember from the biography. But I think if you're looking for a listen, I think it's done very well. And it is a place definitely to start
yeah,
with the caveat that it's not the whole story. There are some
yeah,
shortcomings in the biographer text.
mm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the C.S. Lewis, A Life by Alistair McGrath, who I met Alistair McGrath. I haven't met Humphrey Carpenter, who's
Have you?
yeah, he's well known in Oxford. Tell us
Wow,
about
so jealous.
It's read by Robin Sachs. I was wondering if Alistair might have read it, but I discovered it's not read by him. He's a lovely man.
Mm.
Yeah, Oxford is full of people like Philip Pullman and Alistair McGrath.
Ah, yeah.
They
Mm.
probably go to the same dinners together, and I wonder what their
Yeah.
conversations are like. Probably very,
Mm.
very informed. Anyway, tell us about this biography.
Well, speaking of the author of the biography, at the start, I think it's the narrator actually interviews Alistair McGrath, which is exciting. So yeah, that was very enjoyable to listen to, and it sort of he sort of gave an overview in the interview of what the biography, an overview of how he came to write, be interested and write the biography, which is written for the 50-year anniversary of C.S. Lewis's death. And he sort of talks about, that gives you a bit of a spoiler warning that there's a bit of, he draws on multiple sources, like C.S. Lewis's own letters and other letters and accounts from other people. So he draws from lots of different places to tell the story. And he also highlights at various points how, one account or one person's perspective of an event was ABC and another person's perspective is DEF. And he sort of, puts it together and sort of says, well, this is probably what happened. So he gives you both, all the accounts and then sort of says, well, overall, it's probably looking like that this event and this event happened like this. And it's throughout the biography, and I think it's done very well, but it's a bit more, I'd say it's a bit more analytical sometimes than story. If that they sort of deviate from the story to discuss, well, this is did it happen like this or did it happen like this, and it's a little bit jarring for when you. I've never read a biography like that before, so I found it a bit jarring, but at the same time, it was interesting and enjoyable.
What I find interesting what you've described is it sounds as
Mm.
though he's analyzing what you can know as a biographer. So he's
Ah, yes.
questioning his own sort of audacity to say this is C.S. Lewis's life. Because I haven't read the Alistair McGrath one, but I did a long time ago read the A.N. Wilson one, which
Uh-huh.
A.N. Wilson he didn't come across as actually liking the subject of his biography. I found
Well,
myself
why write it then?
I think he's been on a journey himself since then, so whether or not it's been revised
Ah,
since. There's some problems in getting to grips with C.S. Lewis. So, for example, he has this odd relationship with a lady called Mrs. Moore,
yeah.
which a lot of biographers aren't quite sure what to do with. We also
No, they're not,
have
are
yeah, he also has C.S. Lewis has his own biography, autobiography, Surprised by Joy. So that's a kind of authoritative version of his early life already. So
they? Yes, read.
it's a challenge for a biographer.
Read
Even
that as
though he's
well.
a
Loved it.
copious letter writer, so there's a lot of other material. But
Mm.
this is more incident. You need to sort of put a frame around it about whatever was because A.N. Wilson decides it was an affair. So
Mm.
he takes firmly that way. But the
Mm.
time when that possibly was the case was also the
Mm.
time when C.S. Lewis was an atheist. And it does also then move on to he's definitely her carer in um,
Yeah.
a non-sexualized way. In later
Mm.
life, she's much more like a mother figure. So who knows what
Yeah.
actually really happened in the 1920s? She was the mother of someone he was served alongside in the war, and he promised to look after her. So he took
Yes.
her and her daughter into his household. So that's the
Mm.
backstory to that.
Do you want to know what I think about it?
Okay, tell us, Andrew.
I like to think, and this is me having, particularly being single for so long myself and a bit of a romantic at heart. I like to think that, and I think a lot of the evidence points to that. I think they were lovers, especially in the early days. And if they were, well, then if they were in the early days, well, maybe it never stopped. But I think you're right in terms of that. Yes, the relationship did change later on into he was more of a carer for Mrs. Moore, and there was certainly a lot of, because his mother died as she was a bit of a mother figure as well. But yeah, I do think the evidence points to the lover thing, and especially as one of C.S. Lewis's friends, Arthur Greaves, burnt letters that at some stage that C.S. Lewis wrote to him. I'm like, oh, okay, why are you burning letters?
Yeah, and also I think what I
Cover
would
up.
say about that is that we shouldn't clutch our pearls. So it's C.S. Lewis. Is it the fact that she's older than him that people find so it's if it's an affair in a time when his personal morality as an atheist would have made that not a problem,
Mm,
and he changed his opinion on those things and changed his behavior afterwards.
mm,
Surely that's just all part of the story, but because of the age in
mm,
which he was writing, it wasn't a helpful thing to admit. Whereas now you could probably
mm.
talk about that and people would understand that, gosh, we're complicated and we
That's
have
true.
things in our
Mm,
life and we may regret some of our behaviors for different reasons because our personal morality has changed. I would
mm,
actually wouldn't change my opinion of C.S. Lewis one jot to
mm,
go either way on that, but also I also feel it's really not my business. I don't
mm.
know. You can speculate.
No, yeah, no, I see it as a yeah. If he was romantically involved with her, I'm very happy for him.
Where it would be a
Yeah.
problem for me would be if,
Mm,
there is a hypocrisy involved. So if the affair carries
mm,
on, he becomes a Christian and preaches
mm,
morality and doesn't admit to when there's the difference between the public self and the private self, anybody, any writer,
mm,
politician, whatever, that's where the problem is. I don't think the 1920s Lewis presents us with that gap. Um,
mm,
it doesn't worry me. So I think
mm.
I'm gonna go and probably download that. I would like to listen to that. I think it'd be a biography I'd actually really enjoy. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Oh, no worries. And I'd love to know what your thoughts when you finish reading it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So moving on from the C.S. Lewis's life, we're now going to look at the Inklings book. Is this the one by our friend Humphrey Carpenter that you've been
It
listening
is.
to? Okay.
Yes.
So we're
Mm.
we're circling back. This is the book that deals with both Tolkien and Lewis. How did you enjoy the Inklings biography? Because it's an unusual thing to do a biography of a group as opposed to an individual.
Yes. Yes, I really liked it. I thought it was done very well. It was interesting because this is in a very summarized version. It's pretty much most of it is Humphrey Carpenter's in one sense Humphrey Carpenter's biography of C.S. Lewis because a lot of it centers around C.S. Lewis, and he explains his rationale for doing it that way is because Lewis was sort of the founder and the driving force behind the Inklings. But and he does say that there's not too much about Tolkien because I've written a whole other biography about Tolkien, but he does include little bits and pieces. And then he goes on to discuss Charles Williams, quite a bit on Charles Williams as well, which I don't know too much about Charles Williams, and I confess I haven't yet read any of his books. I think I'd like to at some stage get round to it, but yeah, I do know they're a bit out there and they're a bit different, which
Definitely a bit out there. So just going
mm,
back for I wanted to talk about that actually, and we'll do that at the end, but,
mm,
going back to the Inklings biography, it is the
mm,
source for the conversation, the famous conversation. If ever you
yeah,
see that reference, it's this biography that reconstructs what that conversation was about. And it's a conversation that took place in about 1931, 1930. Can't remember the
mm,
exact date. I should be able to think it's 1931
yeah,
between
I think that too.
C.S. Lewis, Tolkien, and I think it's Hugo Dyson. Interesting.
Yes, yes, it is.
Walking around Addison's Walk. Now, Addison's Walk, if anyone's been to Magdalen College in Oxford, you go over the J.R.R. River and it's all within college grounds. It's a circular walk for quite a stretch of the legs, but all within the college grounds. And
And
it's a sort of postprandial walk that you could do for about half an hour.
that
And
okay.
yeah, so it's a lovely walk. And
And
you
that's in oh sorry, you go.
it's in the college grounds, and you're basically walking around some of the fields where they keep the herd of deer. So it's so Oxford, isn't it?
I
So
when I went
imagine
to
you've got a herd of deer grazing in the middle, and you walk round it in this big circular walk. And it's
ah
great for academic conversations because you're not crossing any roads or anything like that. You can just have a sustained conversation. So it's a lovely walk. You can do it if you go and visit the college. You can go and do that walk yourself. And it's on this walk
ah
that they have the conversation which moves C.S. Lewis to understanding that God can communicate to us through myths, and that the difference
mm,
between Jesus coming and dying, a God that dies, and the myths of dying gods is that one is a true myth and the others are a way of God communicating the story idea, the preparing the ground. That's a
mm,
poor summary of that conversation, but it's summarized much better in the Inklings biography. But that's where it comes from. So if you want to find out about that conversation, you need to read this biography.
yes, yeah, it was very interesting to hear all about all of that, and yeah, get a deeper understanding of how Tolkien and Dyson were able to show C.S. Lewis and bring him to fully embrace Christianity. And then, of course, if it wasn't for that conversation, we wouldn't have Narnia and so many other enjoyable writing, apologetics on Christianity, and
Yeah,
screw tape letters, and yeah,
it was a definite inflection point. I think he said that he was a deist after that, and then it took a while to become a Christian. It was, wasn't it? And he was in a on a bus. There's some
yes,
there's some funny
mm,
throwaway comment where he says, "I started at one end of the bus as not a Christian.
yeah,
By the time I got off, I was a
yeah,
Christian." Makes me laugh.
mm,
Okay, so that sounds like we recommend all of those as a listen if you're wanting.
mm,
I mean, people love listening whilst going out and about and walking these days. So these are all good
mm.
things to take with you.
And the other thing that I will say about that, the Inklings biography, is me as well, being loving history, being a bit of a historian. Humphrey Carpenter does the same thing he did in the Tolkien biography, where he gives a detailed outline, like he did with A Day of in Tolkien's life. He does a detailed reconstruction of what an Inklings meeting would have been like, and he goes on into conversations that they not the exact conversations, but a detail of some of the most likely topics they would have talked about. And really, I was particularly interested in those conversations, but also, the having joined writing groups and stuff as well, knowing, oh, okay, well, what time did they start? What time did they finish? What did they eat or drink, etc. So I really, really enjoyed that, those reconstructions.
So just thinking about the Inklings biography, obviously we've got other people have now tackled the Inklings, like Diana Glyer, for example. And what do you think? I think Carpenter was first in the field. What do you think is not in there? Where else would you have wanted to know more about the Inklings?
Well, he sticks to obviously the main three, Tolkien, Lewis, and Williams, which is fine. But he doesn't really say. He gives a very brief overview of Hugo Dyson's life, and I think there was a couple of other. I can't remember. There was a few other names, people that joined the Inklings that I think he said even less about. That yeah, I would have liked to know a bit more, considering it was covering all the Inklings, but I suppose you have to stop somewhere because it would have been a very long book otherwise. But and then the other thing was he didn't really say too much. He spoke a lot about C.S. Lewis's death, but I was again interested to know. Okay, well, when and how did Hugo Dyson pass away? And yeah, talks a bit about C.S. Lewis's brother Warnie Lewis as well, but again, yeah, some of the other Inklings he didn't really say too much. Another positive thing I liked about it was about the Inklings was talking in detail a bit about C.S. Lewis's walking holidays that he and the Inklings went on, and Tolkien didn't always attend, but he attended a couple of them. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting and enjoyable to know about that aspect of their friendship as well.
Yeah, it's lovely to think of them walking because, particularly for Tolkien, so much of his books are about walking.
Yeah,
It's lovely to think of him going on a walking holiday with the Inklings. Right. So just to round us off, I wanted to make some recommendations, and you have cued me perfectly for one of them, which is
Ah,
that I was digging around before coming to talk to you about what was available on other Inklings writers. And there are a couple of audiobooks of Charles Williams's work, voiced by David Pickering. The two that I saw, there may be more, but the two I saw were The Greater Trumps, which is one of the most fascinating of his books. It's a good place to start. And also All Hallows Eve, which is like a ghost story. They're both read by David Pickering, and he has a lovely voice. They've been out
okay.
since 2021, so I'm a bit late to the party on this, but I think I haven't yet listened to them. I've listened to the sample. I've read both of them long form, but I'm going to definitely
Ah,
download those. So there you are,
okay.
Andrew. If you want to find out just how out there Charles
Mm.
Williams is, the audiobooks are now coming through so that you can access them.
Oh, good,
And I'd
good.
love to talk about what you think of them when, you've had a listen.
Mm. Yes, well, I'm pretty sure Charles Williams read samples of All Hallows Eve to the Inklings.
Yes, he would have done. Yeah. So, thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for joining us, and it's great fun always to talk to you. And I look forward to talking again when we've done a bit more listening.
Sounds good, and as always, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Mythmakers podcast, brought to you by the Oxford Centre for Fantasy. Visit oxfordcenterforfantasy.org to join in the fun. Find out about our online courses, in-person stays in Oxford, plus visit our shop for great gifts. Tell a friend and subscribe wherever you find your favourite podcasts worldwide.